Hi everyone, thank you for joining my talk here today. Before we start, I'll just quickly introduce myself. So my name is Pieter Snyman. I've been in mobile engineering for over 10 years now already. I'm currently working for a company called Appetize as lead solutions engineer. And for those of you that's not familiar with Appetize, closer. For those of you that are not familiar with Appetize, they essentially a software as a service company that allows you to run Android and iOS mobile emulators in a browser. And there's of course like really excellent use cases where this is useful. Let's say for example you want to distribute your app easily, or in this case we're going to talk about end-to-end integration testing in a moment. So yeah, let's jump into the talk. Today we're going to talk about reliably testing your mobile apps and web apps, if you want to, with a single test suite using Playwright. And what I'd like to cover in this talk is particularly covering the challenges that we currently face with end-to-end testing today, how we think Appetize can help with those, and then I'll do a demonstration of exactly how easy it is to get started with Appetize and some of the nice features that we have. So what are the challenges? Most mobile developers will say this is an exciting thing. We have so many technologies out there that you can use today to write mobile applications. You can use Kotlin multi-platform, Flutter, React Native, and different variations of Native. But with all of those come the challenge of various testing solutions. So each one of them might have Detox, Appium, Espresso. There's so many, we didn't name all of them there today, but it is quite challenging. And on top of that, all of you support iOS and Android. There's often a high overhead in managing these environments, especially if you have multiple of the platforms as well. Then there's the learning curve for each of these tools. They work a little bit differently. Some might support just the application itself, where others support accessing the system elements. So they all have different pros and cons to them. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is sometimes these tests can be like really, really slow, flaky, and inconsistent in how you get results. So let's talk a little bit about how we think Appetize can help with this. Let's start with the first challenge, so various technologies to write apps. So Appetize went and wrote a new UI automation framework we call App Recorder. It's been built from the ground up to be platform independent. So if you're using Flutter, you're using React Native, if you're using web views in a native application, all of that is supported out of the box with our application suite. Then the next challenge, various testing solutions, high overhead and managing environments. We noticed, especially from our own clients, that there is a good familiarity with a tool called Playwright with web developers. This is a tool that was created by Microsoft, I think it was in 2020. It's open source and it's great for web development testing. So what we did is we created an integration with Playwright with our app recorder that now allows you to do all of your testing, whether it's mobile, web, or native applications in one testing solution. And the nice thing is that we get all the benefits that Playwright already provides, plus we have our own CI/CD solutions to make sure that the integrations work seamlessly in that environment as well. Let's talk about the challenge of learning curves for each of these tools and environments. Well, we built App Recorder with a lot of the findings from the previous tools, and we tried to make it as easy and familiar to use as you'd expect from the other tools that's usually native to a particular platform. And then on top of that, we've built some additional nice features that I'll show in a moment in this demo that allows you to inspect the application in live mode to see exactly what you can interact with and how you can help build these tests out quicker. And then last but not least, we have a low-code automation tool that's also built on top of all of this that helps you get started really quickly by simply interacting with the application, and it will do a recording for you that you can play back later. I'll show this all in a demo in a moment. And then the last challenge was the inconsistent, flaky, and slow test results. Well, one of the big benefits of this, because we're running it in the cloud, is whether you run this locally or in a CI/CD platform environment, you're always running the same Appetize experience from the get-go. So you want it to work well in your environment, it will automatically work well in the CI/CD environment. So it forces you to think about that. And then something that we've worked really hard on this last 2 years at Appetize was the app launching experience. So a lot of these other tools you often hear about, like, it takes like a minute to start up before you can actually access your app in the cloud, and then it's really slow to interact with. Well, Appetize's average launch time for applications is roughly 4 seconds, so it's really, really quick. And that also means quicker tests, like the test running and interacting with the device is really, really easy. And our model was built to be concurrent. So you'll see you can run up to X amount, but let's say 16 concurrent devices at the same time, reducing the test times that takes to run any of these things. And then lastly, we've also built in a bunch of resiliency functions into our SDK to, for example, do automatic retries or make sure to wait for an element before you start interacting with it. Cool. So let's get to the fun part, the demonstration of how to do this. So the first step is to get your application into the Appetize environment. And we have 3 ways that you can do this. The easiest way, if you just want to get started, is you go to our website, like you can see here. You drag your APK or your app bundle file into our browser, and it will automatically be in our environment. You'll get what we call a public key or a build ID now, and that link can be shared or used for testing in the future. For more long-term solution, we have third-party integration so that your CI/CD pipeline can automatically upload the app as you do, for example, QA testing or any of these scenarios. And if we don't have the third-party integration, we have a fallback to the REST API so that you can write your own one. Right, so once you have your app in Appetize, the next step is to set up a Playwright project. So we created an NPM package specifically to help you get started with this. It will ask you 2 questions. The one is that build ID that I just mentioned, and the second one would be what the default first device would be that you want to use. So we support a bunch of iPhone and Android devices out of the box, and of course this can be customized if it's a scenario in your case. Once that is set up, we'll think about the testing scenario. So we want to understand which elements of your app you can interact with. So we can look at our app recorder inspector mode. As you can see here, it's a button that you click on the page, and it basically enables a live real-time inspection mode to see exactly what accessibility and semantic information is available, as well as things like resource ID, accessibility IDs. And this goes all the way down to web views. Like I said before, it's really platform independent. So if you have it, we'll show it. And the nice thing is you can actually navigate through the app and it will update automatically. Okay, so let's look at an example test. I just made a quick, simple example here of opening the Wikipedia app, searching for droidcon, and then opening the full screen preview of the 2016 event that took place, and then validating that that took place. So I'll quickly talk about some of the functions that we have available to help you write a test, just so that it's more clear. So let's talk about the action portion first. So usually you want to interact with the device or do some kind of touch interaction. So we have things like type, tap, swipe, find element or elements if you want to find multiple. And all of these have the same kind of information that you can use to interact with them as well. So you can use the attributes like resource IDs or any semantic information that is exposed from those elements to interact with them. And then for swiping, you can on top of that also use density pixels to use for swiping up and down as well, or percentages if that is something you prefer. Once you've done the actions, there's usually some kind of assertion that should take place in the test. So we've expanded on the Playwright's expect behavior, plus we have some additional ones that would be nice in the mobile scenarios. So we have expect, just expects that something is there. And then we have things like to have element, not to have element, and the not can be used with all of the other ones as well. And then to match snapshot, which is great for snapshot testing scenarios, just to make sure that it's consistent. And we have percentages that you can adjust on how accurate these snapshots should be. And then I'm going to briefly talk about the helper methods that we have available. These are actually some of the most fun things that I think we expose via the SDK. So we've got things like wait for animations. This is a really great one for, let's say, example, you have transition animations that take place and you don't want to interact until that is done. So this will wait for the screen to stabilize before actually tapping or doing something else. Then we have things like wait for element, which just wait for an element to appear, or event. So just to take a step back, the event one can be things like debug logs or network logs. We have a network intercepting proxy as well that's available out of the box that can, kind of like Charles, tell you exactly what network events took place, and you can use that in your tests as well. And then we support things like deep linking, changing the language, setting the location, accessibility, font size changing, all of those kind of scenarios. And then in more advanced cases, we have things like launch parameters. So launch parameters essentially allow you to pass in NS user defaults or user preferences data to your application, which is great for setting a particular configuration of your app. So let's imagine you have a whitelisted app and you want to have different brandings and match those snapshots. That's great for that. And yeah, you can also toggle permissions and things like this. Right, so that's one way of writing the apps, but then if you just want to get started and you really don't want to dive too deep into the code side of things, you can, like you see in this video, just simply navigate the actual test that you want to do in our player directly, and our low-code automation tool will automatically record these actions as a JSON response, and this can then be exported into a Playwright file or JSON if you want to just use that on a web page as well. And this will automatically be run as well. So this is great to just get started and understand exactly the attributes as well that you expose on there. Right, and then running the test, this goes back straight to the Playwright functionality. So you just go npx playwright test, which is their default behavior, and that will by default be headless. But you can run it in edit mode for local debugging, like you can see in this video, and that just means it will pop up. You can see what's happening and what go wrong, or not wrong, hopefully. And then for other scenarios, we expose a case where, like, if you don't, let's say you ran this in your CI/CD environment and you want to go see what actually happened, you didn't have that live debugging thing that we just showed, there's a trace viewer in Playwright that allows you to review the playback of the whole event. So it's essentially a recording of the whole events that took place, plus all the actions up to that point. And we're currently working on ways to include network logs and debug logs in this trace viewer as well in the future. So that will be like a really cool solution when that is available too. Then for reporting, Playwright exposes a bunch of different building reporters. We have HTML, list, line. Most of the people use the GitHub Action Reporter because it's right baked in, but it depends on whichever CI/CD solution you use. But yeah, it's a really nice way just to see if tests were flaky, not flaky, and how long they took to get the time down. And finally, I just added like a bunch of resources that you can go have a look at after this talk. The main one is obviously our Appetize Playwright documentation to get you started. There's a bunch of things I haven't covered yet that would be really nifty in a lot of use cases as well. And then the Playwright docs as well. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I think we have some time left if you want to ask. Otherwise, afterwards, you can also come visit us at the booth 35. We're happy to answer any of your questions, and we have some more engineers there that can help as well. Thank you, everyone.